Thanks, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It was amazing watching the first 2 episodes with you the other night. I hope you love episode 3 and then 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10. Woo!
Hello there, everybody, and welcome to our final Obi-Wan related video on the channel for the Obi-Wan Kenobi series that we've had been going since like beginning of May. We started doing Obi-Wan content, and then now we've had the whole series come to a close with episode 6. If you haven't checked out our review, please check it out. It's up on the channel, talking about the finale and the series as a whole. We give it a grade out of 5. I think you'll enjoy our thoughts on the finale and getting to see where we're coming from with our point of view on the entire show. But we usually do predictions and speculation on Fridays. Well, there's no Obi-Wan season 2 as of now, so there is nothing to predict and speculate on. I think if we wanted to predict and speculate on, we could go with the running joke of there could be a sequel like maybe 9 years later with a little bit older Luke and a little bit older Leia and a little bit older Obi-Wan. We've seen that one going around, and that's a good idea. But I think today we're going to talk about the possibility of bringing back Ewan McGregor for Obi-Wan and just pose the question, will there be more Obi-Wan? And I think, as you saw at the beginning, there's a lot of voices that want this show to happen, some important voices and big voices in the entertainment industry, the least of which is Obi-Wan Kenobi himself. Ewan McGregor has constantly said it over and over and over in interviews, has said it as late as a couple days ago that he wants more Obi-Wan stories to be told. Hayden Christensen has said it. It's everywhere. They want to do more, and I think we all as fans, even those of you who didn't like Obi-Wan Kenobi, want more stories with Obi-Wan. Like I would be shocked if your takeaway from Obi-Wan Kenobi is, I don't like Obi-Wan anymore, and I don't want to see any more Obi-Wan stories. So today we're going to talk about the possibility of more Obi-Wan stories. Before we do so, please hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel for future Star Wars content. And also comment below. Let us know what you thought of Obi-Wan Kenobi as a whole and what you think will happen here in the future with Obi-Wan content. Do you think there will be any more? Let us know your thoughts down below. So, Sanak, I'm going to pass this over to you here. Will there be more Obi-Wan content? Will it be a show, a movie, an audiobook with Ewan McGregor? I mean, I would love that. What do you think? Will Ewan McGregor return as Obi-Wan here in the future?
Short answer, duh. Like, it's gonna happen. Longer answer, probably filled it rambling. It's complicated because, look, this was the only Disney Plus Star Wars show that's been labeled an event series. Like, there's no possibility for what comes next. At least when they marketed it was like, this is the story connecting 3 and 4 between, Obi-Wan, where he is in that movie, to where he is being the crazy old Ben of A New Hope. We're going to have the rematch of the century, which personally I think we got. I thought it was a perfect transition from beautiful duelist to old men saying, like, these swords don't mean anything anymore. We've seen the max of what we can do, and we've already seen how much the Force can do. Now it's just a battle of the wits to see who's going to go down at the end of the day in episode 4. So I think for me, the story is complete. At least that, relationship, that's done. I don't think there's any reason to have Vader, chase after Obi-Wan. I know that, Palpatine's scene in Obi-Wan show kind of raises the point of like how he's like, yeah, I'm definitely aware Kenobi's still alive. I'm kind of been keeping track of what you're doing. And is this a weakness on your part? You can't let go of your past and move forward. And he kind of just threatens like Vader, for not being able to overcome his past, and possibly, even saying like, hey, if you can't deal with this, like, get it out of your mind. I'm going to replace you. Like, don't waste my time. I'm the emperor. I have a lot more things than your petty, want and desire to beat your old master who you've lost it twice pretty badly. The only thing outside of that I could think could be really developed is the training with, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. And if that means we get to see a Liam Neeson, Ewan McGregor, um, just like a buddy cop almost show of like, how Obi-Wan like navigates being this crazy old hermit while also training. He's rejuvenated for sure, but maybe he still needs to grow into being the mysterious old man beyond the horizon, doing all these things. I don't know if we have, even 3 episodes worth of that content. Like the Yoda arc in the Clone Wars is maybe at max like 15 minutes, 20 minutes of him actually doing force training. But I don't know how much more there is there. I'd say if they're really going to dive into it, maybe make it a Disney Plus original movie, right? Like a cool little continuation where it's like, yeah, it's a sequel you guys all want, but it's not a sequel to the show. It's just a sequel to the character's journey. Don't even have Vader touch into it, right? Maybe have the young kid who's playing Luke get a little bit more development there, here and there. But honestly, we don't even need much. Like the more boring Luke's life is there, the better his whole arc in the originals works. Not saying that he shouldn't have these weird, quirky meetings with Obi-Wan. He should. He's the son of Anakin. He's gonna do crazy, dumb things and he's a Tatooine kid at the end of the day. Like, he might want to jump into a pod racer that he has no clue how to handle. Like, I could see a little bit fun exploration there, but nothing force related, nothing more than like, hey, I got into another accident, but that old Ben dude was there, right? If that's like his role there, great. But training and living on Tatooine could see, and like engaging with the people there, that seems like the only thing left. Kind of like how in our Kenobi review, that's really what he does at the start. And John Jackson Miller even makes notes of it on his website that like, hey, this story still kind of works. Like there's nothing contradicting from the show. Would that be a rehash if he does that again? Probably. So maybe then it just becomes only training, and then what? Does it not? It's not even a movie at that point. It might just be like a special episode that's like an hour and a half, right? Like a one-off special. A lot of people anime do that between different seasons, like OVAs, right? It's an original live action one-off. Maybe it could be a special like that. A special or a movie made solely for Disney Plus. That's the only thing I can see out of this.
Yeah, if I was the one pitching story ideas to Disney for future Obi-Wan Kenobi content, I think personally, if you're going after the show and whatever this hypothetical season 2 would be, I don't know if I would want it to be a full series. Now, there's a lot of ideas that I personally have, and I feel like they could come up with as well that could, make an interesting show out of Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon's time training together. I would love to see it go a bit more into the, the more mental side of the relationship between Anakin and Obi-Wan that we didn't really get to see in the show, that I think episode 4 really missed that opportunity to dive into Obi-Wan's head. I think through the use of the Force, through Obi-Wan going through like intensive Force training, if Tatooine has a cave of its own or something like that, and we've seen Obi-Wan willingly leave Tatooine and has some ship, from the path, and he went to Alderaan. Like, we've seen him leave. I'm up for him going to Dagobah, seeing Yoda, doing something like that, training in the cave. Maybe he and Qui-Gon have some training. Like, I'm up for all that. I do personally, though, think it would be better as a film or like a 2 or 3 episode, like mini series, like 2 or 3 episodes at the most. And I don't know, like, if you're pitching to Hollywood bigwigs, right? Like, I don't know what your 3-act structure would be in that. Like, personally, it would be like a deep dive into the character of Obi-Wan, but what's the like beginning, middle, and end? What is like the climax of this? How are you going to sell the big action climax to people? Because I don't think there should be. And maybe it's just all like Force hallucinations, and like Obi-Wan is, duels Vader again in his mind, or duels Vader Anakin again in his mind, something like that. I'm up for anything like that, where he's constantly talking to Hayden Christensen as Anakin, really putting these pieces out of his mind, putting them back together, talking to Liam Neeson, talking to Yoda, talking to maybe even like a Dooku or like any type of characters that he could see in a cave type place from Dagobah, where he's like, you know, has these figures from his past coming back to him. I would love to see something like that. But again, I don't think it should be a 6-episode show. It obviously wouldn't be a 6-episode show with this kind of budget. You could mix in some more Tatooine stories, like a Jabba the Hutt style story, something, a Tusken Raider style story in from Kenobi as like the, you know, the foundational villain that he has to actually fight, and then disguise that as the plot while your plot really is more focused on the character. I'd love to see that. Also, I would love to see, and I think this is still possible, and John Jackson Miller talks about it in Kenobi, and we also talked about it in our review about how Obi-Wan's not nearly as damaged in that novel, or immediately, if you're following the Legends timeline, in the immediate year after Revenge of the Sith, as he is in this book. So, and I also feel from, you know, the scene at the end of Revenge of the Sith where he's handing Luke off to Owen, just his conversations with Yoda and Bail, he doesn't seem as broken in any of those moments as he is here. So I think because you have 10 years, you have a lot of time for him to at least have his faith in like the world be destroyed even more. Maybe there's a hope that, you know, people will stand up to the Empire. There's a hope that people will stand up for what's right. And slowly, he's like, his faith in humanity and his faith in people and being good in general is destroyed. Maybe he does try to help a couple Jedi and they all get killed, and that's why he's averse to helping the one at the beginning in episode 1 of the show. So I think we could do a lot of different stuff like that. But again, the optimal word for any Obi-Wan story that I see in the future here is smaller, because I don't think you could possibly go bigger than Obi-Wan traveling to like 3 or 4 different planets, visiting Fortress Inquisitorius, fighting Darth Vader. Like, that is as big as it can possibly get for Obi-Wan in these 19 years. And I think if you don't do something smaller, more character driven, then I think you're making the wrong decision, both for the outcome of this show, the way the show has wrapped up its character, the way it set him on a path, but also just for those quieter moments. Like, I mean, you've got Ewan McGregor. He's arguably the biggest superstar actor you have in any of these shows that have been on Disney Plus, on like from any of the studios that you have, like Marvel or Star Wars. You can argue some of the Marvel characters, but I mean, I don't know. Like, Ewan McGregor was absolute A-lister in his prime. And so having that type of performer, having that type of person who can emote the way he can, I'd love to see a smaller story, a smaller scale story, that maybe 2 smaller scale stories. One that destroys his faith in humanity and sends him up to the events of Obi-Wan Kenobi. But then maybe also one that we start to see him restore his faith a little bit more as we see him set on that path at the end of Obi-Wan Kenobi. And that involves Qui-Gon and Yoda and more training. Those are how I would pitch the story, basically, if I was trying to come up with something for the future of Obi-Wan. But any final thoughts on that before we wrap this video up?
Yeah, I mean, I think a big point that Miller makes in his notes is that, you know, trauma is not linear. You know, I think a lot of people in life can attest to the fact that when something horrible happens to you or someone you know, it's like there's an adrenaline, and then there's like a few small time periods, like maybe days or months, where you're okay. Like, it sucks, you know what just happened, but like it doesn't hit you until, you know, things change or like it starts to digest. And I think that's where the Kenobi novel still works perfectly well. Like, yeah, like he was already learning to like separate himself from people because of the events of that book, forcing a whole family and like a little area to just be removed from Tatooine, right? Even if he's not really the reason why it was going to fall apart, his intervention made it only worse and worse. So you've already lost the chance of him like being a force of good, and that's an active community member, even if it is a little bit down low. That's already ruined by the end of Kenobi. And the fact that Qui-Gon never really talks to him, like the closest that he probably gets in that moment is at the very last lines, but Qui-Gon doesn't say anything yet. I think maybe you could see and fulfill some prequel fans like desire to see even more prequel content, and like with real extensive de-aging and all that. Like if you really want to do that, what you can do is maybe showcase like during these Force visions and all that. A big thing that Yoda goes through is that he sees Count Dooku, he sees Qui-Gon, he sees Obi-Wan around the Great Tree at the Jedi Temple. Maybe you have an Obi-Wan who's able to turn Anakin back, right? Who in the moment in the crux where it's like, he stops him from doing all these monstrous things, and then he like kind of lives out his life, right? Like in maybe the thinking that like, yeah, this is great and all that, but at the end of the day, Anakin still falls, right? Like Anakin's still twisted by Palpatine and all of these things. Like maybe this was inevitable. Maybe that's what he finds out from this Force vision. Maybe he has a vision of like how he beats Vader again and again and again, and every time he cuts away more and more of his humanity, cuts off his chest, arms, legs, he comes back more and more monstrous machine, right? Like there are different things you can do. It could be whole extended sequences like the prequel thing I described, where you just continue an alternate universe. It could just be like flashes of every single time he strikes down and cuts something off more and more, beheads even Vader, and he still comes back. Like you could do something like that. But like you said, Liam, it's got to be smaller, both in length, both in story, both in writing, everything. Like it just, if we don't get a special or anything, what we can think of is possibly seeing Force Ghosts in Ahsoka. Like maybe he has a conversation there, all right, in the near future. If not, give it a break. Enjoy the show. It's overall, even if people dislike it here and there or completely written it off, it's nowhere near as much as like the hatred and the suffering that all the actors went through for the prequels, and which are now beloved. Like give it 3 years. We're already hearing from just people that we're responding to that Book of Boba Fett is so much better than Kenobi, which is like just 3 months ago people were whining about Book of Boba Fett. Now it's like they're saying it's great. Like the show is in a much stronger place. We think it's great, but give it like a year or two and just a bit of a break for Ewan and everyone who's interested. Let it settle in, come back in these bit roles, and people are going to love the show maybe even more. I think it's just about now you've gotten the big thing out. Now just do these small little bits and roles.
Yeah, I think for sure we need a little step back. I think especially with the release calendar we have coming for Star Wars, it's very much so like packed right now. But I think that's a good suggestion, having Obi-Wan also appear in Ahsoka, especially for dabbling in Force Ghosts there. As much as I want Hayden Christensen and Anakin to be the number one, I think having Obi-Wan there in a show in 2023 reinforces that, Ewan McGregor is in Star Wars right now and he's back and he wants to be a part of it, and just keeping that fresh for people, I think, will be a good thing. But let us know what you thought of our suggestions down below. Also, if you have your own suggestion that we didn't mention or a story idea that builds off of something we said, let us know down below. We will comment. We'd love to talk hypotheticals and stories down with you guys in the comments. If you haven't yet, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more continued Star Wars content. Check out our Obi-Wan Kenobi playlist as well as our review for episode 6. We discussed it completely and the entire show as a whole, gave it a score. Check that review out, as well as all of our Obi-Wan content, ranging from top 5 favorite Obi-Wan moments to how to adapt Kenobi to Kenobi review to reviews and predictions for every single episode of the show. We have a ton of Obi-Wan content out there, so check it all out. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.